Welcome, everyone, and happy Thursday. It is noon Eastern time, right outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, in a booming metropolis I like to call Ambler, PA. Thursday, noon, you know what that means. It is time for your favorite show on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and sometimes Twitter. I'm talking about a little show I like to call Talent Experience Live. The show that covers everything that you need to know in talent acquisition, recruiting, talent management, human resources, and everything in between. I am your host, Devin Foster, and this program is proudly brought to you by the good folks here at Phenom, whose purpose is to help 1 billion people find the right work. That's why we host Talent Experience Live every Thursday at noon Eastern time. It's why we have a fantastic blog, why we host fantastic week-long events like Industry Week, why we have AI Day coming up September the 12th, and why we will be at every single HR event under the sun this fall. And all of that is wonderful. It's fantastic. We get to have great conversations with industry folks. We get to network and do all of that. But the real way we help 1 billion people find the right work is through our intelligent talent experience platform, which helps candidates find the right fit faster, employees evolve in their current roles and beyond, recruiters achieve next level productivity and efficiency through automation, and managers get better data and insights through our analytics and dashboards. So if any of that interests you at all, don't walk to phenom.com, where you'll learn all about our super slick artificial intelligence and machine learning, as well as all of our promotions. But don't do it just yet. You can listen to this show, because we have an episode you will not want to miss. Today, I am joined by the good folks at Cielo. I am joined by Marco Abato and Elaine Orler, and we are talking about the healthy balance between tech brand and genuine connections. I think employer brand is something that continues to gain steam, no matter how much we think it has already taken over the talent landscape. It continues to outdo itself every single time, whether it's fancy career sites, marketing campaigns. All of this is super important, but it also begs the question of how much can be done digitally and how much of the human connection is still required. And these two experts really break it down and talk about the technical must-haves, as well as where sometimes you may need to just pick up the phone and call somebody to help them get a job or find that next role, because you can't have one without the other. I know last week I talked with Kristen Starodub, and she mentioned that humans will never fully be replaced by AI, but the human that leverages AI may replace the human without. And I think the main factor there is that you need to leverage the human element in HR, in recruiting, and in talent acquisition. And today we talk about all of those things with Cielo. So without any further hesitation, here is Marco and Elaine. Thanks. Welcome, everyone, and welcome both of you to Talent Experience Live. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Of course, we have Cielo on today, and I would like to give you both the opportunity to say hello, tell us a little bit about yourselves, and maybe how you got into the HR space. Marco, I know we chatted about this previously, but it's always fun. Elaine, I think everyone's journey into human resources is always different. Nobody wakes up and says, I want to work in HR, for the most part. So tell us how you got into the field.
Very, very true, actually. I actually have my degree in elementary education.
Okay.
And I taught kindergarten and first grade for a couple of years. And then when we moved to California, I had worked in a department store in their personnel department for about 6 months while going to college. That got me an interview at Qualcomm Incorporated in San Diego before anybody knew what Qualcomm and telecommunications and cell phones were going to be. And that landed me the first job in talent acquisition, or back then recruiting personnel. And it was transferable skills between teaching kindergarten and first grade and recruiting digital design engineers.
Okay.
So you just needed to work them the same way you would a classroom.
Yeah.
So from there, I moved quickly out of recruiter role into recruiting systems and really found my passion and my stride in recruiting systems. So went from there into consulting, was in consulting roles for a couple of years, ran my own company for 12 years, started a software company, let that go as well. And then now I work for Cielo.
Okay, awesome. Fun journey. And I think it jumps out at me, you said Qualcomm, because today's conversation is going to be around brand and technology.
Yep.
And when you said that, all I could think of was the San Diego Chargers' old stadium, which used to be Qualcomm Stadium, getting their brand out there.
There's a long story to that too.
Oh,
how little money they paid to get that brand back then.
Oh,
yeah. I think I'm sworn to secrecy on that.
That's fair. I mean, it's funny though; those things over time accrue. I remember when they put sponsors on jerseys. I think the entry for that originally, like in the NBA, was like $1 million. Yeah. And I think they play 82 games a year. That's all over the place. Anyway, we'll save that story for another day because I could talk sports all the time. Marco, welcome back.
Thank you.
We're going to get you a jacket, recurring guest.
I would like one of those Phenom jackets I've been seeing floating around.
I might be able to find one for you. I know you've been on before, but for those who may not have been able to catch the first episode, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into HR?
Yeah, so I wanted to be in advertising and brand, and found myself in recruitment marketing far longer than I would like to admit, and worked on the agency side for quite a while, and found myself here at Cielo about 6 years ago.
Okay. All right. Happy to be here all 6 years.
Yeah, it's been a great journey. I'll call it a journey. It was exciting. We've changed quite a bit. When I joined Cielo, we were an RPO organization.
Yeah.
We are now more total talent or talent acquisition partner, where we focus on RPO, consulting, brand, and digital accelerators. So we view ourselves, not everyone is in the market to buy any of these one individual products or solutions. So we have solutions that bring everything to our clients, and we meet them where they are.
Okay, awesome. Now, I know today, I mentioned we're talking about both brand and technology. I want to start with the brand right off the bat. How do you define brand recognition in terms of talent acquisition? I mentioned the Qualcomm kind of reference there before. I don't think they were putting that up on the stadium for talent acquisition purposes. So when it comes to using it for really attracting talent, how do the two play nice?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We define it as talent magnetism. Play on words, I guess, making our clients a talent magnet. It's a combination of their reputation, the experience that you give the individual job seeker, and the reach that you have as an employer. So every individual's on their own journey. They have their own experience, but we want to make sure that they have that consumer level experience. You're easy to find, research as an organization, and then the reputation aligns into what that individual is looking for. And that's how we bring brand, really have identified brand as a way to bring some of those consumer marketing principles to the talent acquisition space.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm sure a lot of, not every organization, but a lot of organizations, the talent that they're trying to magnetize could also be customers. So having that really at level playing field or level experience for both has to be important. I want to ask about the technology in this aspect. How does that play into maybe the brand aspects? When we think about it, does an entire career path or career journey need to be branded? How can the technology have a negative impact on the brand, if that makes sense?
Yeah, there's a couple of different answers to that. So I think the first is the positive respects to what technology can do, and that's really enabling the conversation. So moving the candidate through the transactions in a way that feels familiar, that's more successful for them in the way in which they want to interact. But then it also moves them to a faster state for conversation. So when I think about the technology piece, it's not just brand, it's brand and overall experience. Okay. So, and organizations need to be able to stand up to that experience they're trying to deliver for their candidates and for their future employees, etc. That defines by technology being able to support that in many ways.
Now, I think we all know when we buy technology, we expect it to work perfectly, right? But I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to throw my iPhone across the room from time to time. So I want to ask you, when it comes to technology and having this state-of-the-art experience, what are some challenges or even pitfalls that happened that could negatively impact brand that you've seen or come across?
Oh, it's a really great question. I think one of the greatest pitfalls is not really seeing the process through the candidate lens. When we implement technology just for technology's sake, or we're doing it to solve for a different problem and we're not thinking about the end user, we're really struggling to find a way to be successful with that. And so I think all the content that we create, the storyboard that we bring forward, the message that we're trying to bring, as soon as we create that next step in the candidate's experience, which is fill out a 45-page form and spend 45 minutes on an application that times out in 10 minutes. These are not real life problems. Of course they are. So we really need to tie that experience to the story that we're trying to project.
No, that makes sense. I mean, you can have the shiniest looking car in the lot, but if it doesn't turn on and get you from point A to point B, or it gets you from point A to point B, breaking down and timing out every 10 to 15 minutes, whatever it may be, nobody's going to have a good time there. Marco, I want to ask you, when it comes to the brand, there's been a lot of conversation over the past few years around purpose-driven organizations and the next batch of talent really being focused on what a company stands for as opposed to maybe what they build or produce. When companies are standing up this employer brand, how can they come across as being genuine, right? I think everybody wants, to do the best and put their best foot forward, but it's a fine line of backing up what you talk. How do organizations, can they say, hey, we're actually doing this, we're genuine about our mission or purpose?
Yeah, it's a great question and top of mind for pretty much every client that I work with right now. For us, it really comes down to authenticity and transparency, sharing employee stories, getting that opportunity to talk with people doing the job today, whether they're working at a health system, a major retailer, or a technology company, to talk about their experience. Really, from its standpoint, it could be what their day-to-day looks like. It could be the reason why they joined and the purpose that they're focusing on as an organization and as an individual. And when those two things align, that's where you really see the powerful stories come across. And that's what we want to portray, whether we're talking about on website, on email marketing, social media, what have you. We're going to always take a multi-channel approach to kind of solidify that experience and get it in front of the right people who are going to find value in it.
Are there any examples? You don't have to name names.
Mm-hmm.
I won't put you on the spot here. But any examples that come to mind, maybe of a positive impact where you had some of these discussions with some clients and said, how do we reevaluate this and come across as more genuine to our target audience?
Yeah. One of my clients in Asia Pacific was running a focus on women in technology. And we had the opportunity to interview quite a few of their employees, talking about first English speaker in their family, first college graduate, first one to have a job in technology. These experiences and why they joined that organization, why they stayed, the empowerment that they felt, the pride that they felt, these are all what we had as an opportunity to talk with those individuals. The employer was 100% behind it. This was their major area of focus for growth. And that actually was able to turn into one of the strongest campaigns that we ran from a targeted audience, underrepresented population, authenticity, name it all, kind of all fell into that umbrella, and it was really a great experience.
Awesome. I love hearing that, where you can take one story that is heartwarming and really represents the organization and essentially give it a megaphone, right? Yeah. And then it have a lasting impact that will bring in more of those stories, right? If you have one employee raise their hand and say, hey, I have a similar story that I'd love to, share.
And that's the domino effect that's actually transpired from there, where one tells that story and then someone hears it, and then the next person's puts their hand up. They want to do the same story, and then it travels over to the United States or it travels to EMEA, because that's the kind of traffic and the connection, because most employees want to use that megaphone and tell that story. Absolutely. Because it's an area of pride, and it's also an area of retention for the organization. And we'll talk a little bit about retention, hopefully, because that's really one of the great parts that brand can bring to that talent acquisition and talent management experience.
Before you know it, you have people barging in the door, ready to tell their story, not even knocking. But I think I like I said, I love hearing these. Elaine, I want to ask you, when it comes to ROI, right? I think a lot of us want to measure, ROI. None of us are doing it manually anymore, right? It's all done through bits and pieces of technology here and there. Is there a way to see or a key metric to see when you give that story a megaphone, if it's reaching the audience correctly when it comes to the technology and what sort of analytics or things you can see?
Yeah, I think we measure everything today, and there's so many different ways and so many different tools to measure. But I think the bigger value proposition is measuring the journey that the person went through and the experience overall. So what captured their attention? And a lot of times that takes surveys to ask. And it takes that ability to ask those additional questions to your new hires. What was your original point of capture? Because so many times our systems capture referrals, as an example. Everybody's a referral. Well, you got to be a referral because something else captured your attention. Was it the videos that were on the website? Was it your neighbor's experience? What was it really that got that first point? And so we only find out those through surveys and through interviews and questions. But when we do that, we see the value that we've put into all of that work up front. And technology can help us enable those pieces, but survey tools are probably what I would say need to be better leveraged, or a way to ask early and often what's really driving your experience with talent acquisition.
Yeah, I mean, brand recognition, right? You could have seen a really cool ad on YouTube or whatever it may be. You're not going to click that link. You're going to Google it later when you're frustrated at work or whatever it may be. I want to ask you, when it comes to future technologies, what are you excited about in the future when it comes to this topic of conversation? Is there a new, I'm going to say it, buzzword alert, AI tool that you're excited about? Hopefully that gets us clicks and everything like that, or something in between that you're interested in.
That's a really great question, and thank you for being the one to break the buzzword, and I didn't have to.
Of course.
So I appreciate that very much. I think we're in a reflection area time where we're going to see a lot of change happening over the course of the next few months and the next couple of years. Generative AI is definitely changed and reshaped a lot of the things that we're doing today within messaging, within content, within the distribution of content. But it's also disrupting the way candidates are presenting themselves as well. And so I don't think we've got our arms wrapped around what that's going to mean completely from a technology perspective. I think what we're going to see is candidates starting to use generative AI to recreate their resume, to recreate their story that maps directly to the job, which means we don't have a fit analysis anymore. So we're going to see new tools come out with skills, new tools that come out with better ways of mapping somebody's capabilities, experiences, and those pieces that are going to change the dynamic in which we have for organizations to really assess that fit factor. And technology's got to lead us there. Because there's the volume numbers that organizations deal with today, just the volume of applicants to the volume of positions that they're working with, and the number of requisitions recruiters are required to maintain. We need technology to be the enabler to be able to distribute against this volume piece. Yeah,
I had a conversation earlier today around the beginning of ATS systems, right? Before that, it was just job boards. And this individual was telling me that they had clients call up and be like, you have to turn the job board off. My email's clogged, right? It has completely shut down. Fast forward to 2024, we're going to have all of these, I don't want to call them doctored resumes, but the perfect resume for what you're applying for. All of a sudden, everyone's at the top of the funnel. We're right back to, square one. And we need to start looking at things like skills and bringing back the human touch as much as you can. That's easier said than done, of course, with all of these numbers continuing to go up. I want to ask, and I'm not sure who to direct this question at, so I'm going to toss it up in the air. Okay. How do you think you can manage human touch and technology in order to create the best experience, right? You mentioned surveys before about getting that intel, but before you have that data, how do you think companies can balance the two?
Take a first step. I think we need to remember that the human touch is equally important to the technology. And so oftentimes it gets pushed aside with the time that the limited amount of time that people have to have those conversations. We need to go back. to the right conversations. I think a candidate's impression or expectation is when they apply, they feel that they're the right person for the job. So they're coming at this from the angle already, I'm the perfect fit, why haven't you called me yet? And yet we're looking at it going, there's 1,000 perfect fits. I can't call you all, but we need to start calling some. And I think the art of getting back into the phone screen, getting back into the interview screen, having those conversations, helping people to redirect their level of interest. And I think there's a point in time where we have to start being honest with candidates that they're not the one for the position. And how we gently how we present honesty in a graceful way is an art that goes back to that human touch that I think it's just a muscle that we need to begin to flex again.
It has to be the hardest part of a recruiter's job.
I believe it is.
And no one wants to do it, right? It's like I like going to the dentist, but it's like going to the dentist, right? I never have cavities, but neither here nor I still have bad teeth. As both of you grill them. Neither here nor there. Like having that conversation and being human around it is going to have a much better impact on the candidate who's being rejected, right? Building that relationship. Maybe it is a new position down the line. Maybe it's building that network for another role or wherever it may be. One aspect of the human touch that you kind of alluded to it before, Marco, is employee retention, right? And I think that that's an instance, and this is my opinion, where sometimes the human touch is a little bit too much and we need more technology in those sort of roles, because no manager wants to give up their top performer, right? Everyone wants to progress and have that, but to say, hey, I want a new job in this company is a hard thing to do, especially in a manager one-on-one. Can you talk a little bit about that when it comes to brand, again, where companies maybe balance the act of, we want to promote you, but we want to, we need you to stay where you're at. And then maybe how some of these testimonials can be successful with that.
Yeah, I think a lot of that kind of goes into having those tough conversations, whether it's a recruiter, whether it's a hiring manager, your existing manager on internal mobility. The brand impact of ghosting a candidate, the brand impact of not giving an existing employee the right experience because they're going to talk to their friends, and then suddenly it becomes harder for you to recruit in the future. So I think from that standpoint, it is really important for that individual manager to see that high performer and help them move forward with their career, but build a sustainable pipeline, if you will, of how to backfill that individual. And I think that's where the art of internal mobility, retention, talent management all comes into play, to find that right opportunity and to cultivate that growth of the individual. I don't necessarily think that's something that technology solves. I don't really know if it's something that brand solves, but I know in both instances, they can have negative impact on technology. They can have it, for sure, from my lens, will have a negative impact on the brand if you keep someone stuck in a role that they feel they've grown beyond.
Yeah.
I would add, I think there's an element of what's happening with internal mobility today, that it was always the candidate the employee needed to raise their hand and say, I'm looking for something else internally. And that would create a dynamic with their manager of separation or abandonment or whatever else. And I think we're starting to see even more different generations that are in the workforce today looking at this as, no, this is your opportunity to learn from this phase or this project, and that you will evolve and move on to something else. But I think the opportunity from a talent acquisition lens is also for our ability to tap them on the shoulder. We have so much rich information around our employees. We know their skills taxonomies. We know their ontology. We know all of these other buzzword bingos that come out as far as what skills mean today. And we're able to take that information and data and look at somebody's career path and help them with that path. And the tools are there today. The content and the brand and the recognition and availability is there today. It's just activating this within our organizations.
Yeah, I love what you mentioned there about the skills conversation, right? Because I think as we shift towards that, there's going to be less pressure on the job title, right? And more emphasis on, I need someone in my department with this skill, where you can begin to cross train and kind of have that rover individual who can wear many hats and get a lot of things done. And they're not necessarily, I don't know if pigeonholed is the right term, but stuck in that one role, as you pointed out. And then that person can share their story, right, and amplify it.
Absolutely. I would even challenge talent acquisition on that side. If they have a proper internal mobility platform where they can look, like how many times does talent acquisition look internally first at their own employees for a new role?
Yeah.
And when you have an internal mobility program where you can look at what their learnings are, what their goals are, the types of roles that they're interested in, you may have the ideal candidate working for you, but they're in a different department, they're in a different role today. And as Elaine pointed out, maybe it's a tap on the shoulder. As a recruiter, you go there first, because then you're not, spending the tremendous amount of investment dollars that require outbound recruiting.
Yeah. And I mean, I know some organizations do have the policy, right, of we have to post it internally first.
But posting is different than actively recruiting.
How many times are you going to post a job and then all of a sudden it's filled?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen anymore, right? There's still those steps in the process. So I think that is, and that's a culture thing where you have to create that comfort for individuals, for talent acquisition people to reach out and tap folks on the shoulder, and also the employees to feel comfortable enough in their current role to, if they raise their hand when someone asks them to, that they're not going to immediately put a dot on their back.
Well,
or
the hiring managers are all going to be calling me now. What are you saying to pull people from my team for?
Exactly. Now we have to fill this role all over again. Do you know how long it took us to find so-and-so? But I love this conversation. I think that it all is interconnected, and it has been forever, right? Talent acquisition and that kind of a pipeline. I want to ask you, if there was, either of you, maybe both of you, if there was any piece of advice that you could give someone, not necessarily starting in talent acquisition, but running into some of these challenges, whether it be with brand, whether it be with technology. I know both of you will probably say, start with brand first, start with technology first. Before they can do any of that, what's one piece of advice that you would like to give them? I'll start.
I'll get to go first. Well, the answer is going to be start with both.
Okay.
But I think the reality is just start.
Yeah.
Is the biggest thing I can ask of anybody in talent acquisition. We look at what we're doing today and we get exhausted with the amount of work we have to do, but we still need to be better. There's still cost pressures that are coming from every external force that there can be, and there's still a need to meet the company's business needs. And I don't know that there is a better job or career out there that you get to actually impact people's lives the positive way that we do. We get to bring somebody to a career, to an opportunity that they wouldn't have had otherwise, that we get to help steward them into something that's better for them. Mm-hmm. And with that in mind, we need to look at the way we deliver technology, and we deliver the story to be successful at that, and to continue to do that in a gracious way. Yeah.
And I want to add one thing before I hand it over to you.
I actually wouldn't add anything to that, because actually I was going to say both, because it is actually 100% accurate. It is. You can have the best technology, but if you don't have something that substantiates your point of view, who you are as an organization, and then without the technology, it's very difficult to deliver a brand message, especially if you think about destination. Yeah. Like, where do you send them to if you don't have the right platform, the right channels for that message to be sitting on? You're just shouting in the abyss.
Yeah. Yes. And starting could be something as simple as picking up the phone for that reject candidate, right? Rejected candidate, or whatever it may be. Or, offering, I think we talked about this the last time you were on, offering that advice to an individual on how they can improve their interview skills, right? That's something that I know I did in staffing forever. We'd coach up candidates to go in and say, be sure not to chew gum, don't do this, that, the other thing. Those little things are life lessons that somebody can keep for the long haul, and then find that next role in the organization or wherever it may be. So, and that's brand. That's not necessarily technology, but we'll get into that with the next portion. Yes, the phone is absolutely. Even if you do occasionally want to throw it at a wall, not speaking from experience. What are both of you excited about when it comes to the future of talent acquisition and in some cases talent management?
Since we brought up AI, I'll use that. from a brand standpoint, I'm actually really excited about this, because when I think about the amount of content that I can now begin to create from, let's say, one quarterly interview session with 3 different people, the number of pieces of content that can be created from that, using the brand guidelines, using imagery, and actually be able to produce different forms of content, whether it be social, whether it be email, whether it be long form, a blog post. There's just countless ways that I can have 3 30-minute interviews and then create multiple content pieces. The challenge in the past was, how do I get in front of enough people and then be able to produce that into content? Well, now I can actually have authentic content generated, but have a tool that actually helps me speed through that process. It's not taking the human element out in any way whatsoever. It's not taking that designer out, that copywriter out. We're still utilizing all of those individuals, but we're able to produce more content in a faster pace to allow for the individual to truly understand what it's like to potentially work at organization XYZ.
And it's valuable because content goes stale very fast now. Nobody wants to hear that. Everyone wants to say, oh, we can repurpose it. But the way that technology is set up right now, no one has the attention span for it. And if they see it, a week ago, they see it again, it's going to feel old. I know. I hate saying that. I work in content. I want to reuse it all. How about you, Elaine?
I think for me, the thing I'm most excited about is the disruption that's going to happen, especially around the concept of what the candidates are doing today with their resumes, and the fact that we just can't rely on that as a source of truth anymore. Granted, it was never truly a source of truth, but it was always the format, and we've been using it since pre my career, and I've been in this industry now for 30 years. So for talent acquisition to still revolve around the resume, it is ripe for disruption. And I think the way we're going to see skills come in, the way we're going to see competency models come in, and the underlying technology to support a collaboration, even though it's with a bot, even though it's through dynamic messaging and those kinds of pieces, are going to advance our knowledge of somebody's ability to put them into the position faster.
Absolutely. It's about time somebody paid for saying that they're proficient in Microsoft Excel for this many years. Because I know I have, and I am not. So I'm excited for that disruption as well. Before we go, anything else that you'd like to add? I know I want to tell the folks where they can learn more about Cielo, but any final parting shots?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, good. All right. Where can folks go to learn more about Cielo?
I think if you start at cielotalent.com is our website, and there's a lot of content that's there. Marco and I are underneath the consulting tab, so he covers our brand services, and I cover our technology consulting services delivery, and you'll find the details there and how to contact us.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you both so much. I appreciate it. We'll have you on again next year.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, perfect. What a great conversation between the two of them. Thank you both for joining today's episode. We could dive into a number of topics, right? But really what I think the main point is you can't have one without the other. Although all of the digital things are fantastic and are expected, they are now table stakes, you also have to have that human element, because that could be the deciding factor to having your next great hire and not, is picking up the phone after that application, is following up with individuals once they receive a conversation, and sometimes having those challenging conversations of, hey, unfortunately, we decided to go in a different direction with this role. We still love you as a candidate, so please stay in touch. When something else comes up, we will reach out to you, because that's what this is all about at the end of the day. We go to work to enjoy our lives, to enjoy the fruits of our labor, but it's also, we go to work to enjoy the time that we spend with people, and that starts within the application process. So thank you so much to Elaine and Marco. Marco, recurring guest. I think this is his second or third time being on the program. Always a great conversation with him. And Elaine, can't wait to have you back on again. But in the meantime, I hope everyone has a safe, happy, and healthy weekend. 3-day weekend here in the United States. So go soak up that last little bit of sun. Have some adult beverages, if you will. Enjoy the 3-day weekend. And we can't wait to see you next week, September the 5th, where we talk all about our upcoming AI Day event. It's going to be a fun episode, I promise. I don't want to give too much away, but it is going to be a little bit unique because it's also our 200th episode. So can't wait to see you there. Once again, thank you so much to the Cielo team, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Have a great day.